mode.
Welcome, friends, to our continuing Dissipation of Glamour Initiative, known as Doggy. Okay, I'm sure it has something to do with the fact that Sirius, that great station of light unfettered, follows the great hunter Orion, is the loyal dog. Well, anyway, we'll learn more about that, those of us who may be treading the path to Sirius. I'm glad to welcome you here, and just a quick rundown. I won't be able to welcome everybody who comes a little later, but just to say hi to Anna and Anne-Marie and Annette and Antoinette and Carl and Catherine and Dabo, Deborah, Denise, Diane, Eha, Eric, Francois, Helena, Jan, Joan, Yoke, and Karen, and Lori, and Margot, Michael, Myrna, Olivia, Renee, and Risto, Robin, Sheldon, and Stephanie, Tuija, Victoria, Winnie, and Yvonne. So welcome and thank you for attending our ongoing Dissipation of Glamour Initiative, which was started by Olivia, Tuija, and myself some time ago. And we have a wonderful book called Glamour, A World Problem. It's very, very deep, and we have plenty of opportunity to go into it in depth and hopefully master some of these techniques that will help us clarify the astral plane and the mental plane, and also to clean out, to a certain extent, the etheric plane. Maybe that's even the first step. The real dissipation of glamour, as far as I remember it, occurs in a very powerful way sometime in the future, when humanity will learn with massed intent to stand and to make its attack on glamour. But first, although we do that, we have to work with the triangles and the clarifying of the etheric plane and bringing the soul energy into it, so that that which precipitates on the physical plane can be more akin to the design of the divine plan. Well, we've been working with techniques. We talked about the technique of light, and that's the one we largely use for our glamour meditation. At the moment, however, we are into a still deeper matter, which is the technique of the presence, and it has everything to do with utilizing the spiritual triad and even the energy of the monad. And it's the attempt to make of all of us true intuitives. That's easily spoken, but it's a very demanding process, and much preparation is required. And I think, the true intuitive appears not only after the third initiation, for which there is training for the intuitive life, but after the fourth, when the consciousness is really focused upon the Buddhic plane. Right now, we're lucky if we become recipients of that Buddhic energy, and we can certainly prepare to do so. Just a little bit of alignment for us. A little alignment. Yeah, well, and more people have come, and welcome to everybody. So, we're coming together in the space of consciousness as if we all have the ability to hold the mind steady in the light of the soul, and as if now and then it becomes possible to enter the higher mind and that field of consciousness we call the causal body and egoic lotus, and there dwell in a world of spiritual light, spiritual love, and spiritual sacrificial will. This is the realm of one of our higher selves. You know, we have a number of higher selves. The egoic lotus is, the triad is, the monad is. They're all higher selves. And we're working in the closest cooperation, not just as personalities, but more as soul-infused personalities. We're working from the illumined mind, and we're contacting the angel of the presence, who will introduce us to the presence itself, which is our true higher nature. So our goal is to heal, to clarify, to somehow change the present condition of the etheric, physical, astral, and lower mental worlds, the lower 18 subplanes, in a way ruled by the moon in the tarot. Those 18 subplanes resist the descent of the higher patterns. And our job in this turbulent time, when truth and falsehood are so easily intermixed, is to bring the light into those areas so that we can understand, desire, and do that which really needs to be done. And so, you know, we consistently work in this way, doing our subjective part to bring about outer results which are in keeping with what the hierarchy intends, what the Christ intends, what Sanat Kumara intends. And the time is short before the 2025 period. It's a climax, in a way, of a seventh ray cycle, very interestingly. 350 years from 1675, when the seventh ray began its descent, at least according to DK. Just, go to Esoteric Psychology 1, page 26 or so. You're going to see when the rays came in and out. And this is a climax, the midway point of the seventh ray cycle of 700 years. And the plans are going to be laid for the first stages of the externalization of the hierarchy, leading later to the reappearance of the Christ. Well, for all that, we have to prepare. And we will. Let's just sound an Om, affirming our willingness to work together in this subjective manner according to DK's principles and the formulas he's given us. We will do some good. Okay, we're going to begin. I just want to remind you at this point that tomorrow morning, we're in the evening period of these Ask programs right now, but tomorrow morning we're going to do one of our occasional programs, of which there may be 7 or so lined up, called the Science of Triangles, and it will focus starting on page 407 of Esoteric Astrology, on some deeper aspects of what the triangles do on the various levels. And we'll, I think, learn a lot of occultism. So if you can join that, I think either in the chat box or something, Brett said he'd be putting in, there it is, I guess. There's our webinar that starts at 5 a.m. tomorrow, GMT, and we'll continue to use the text as a jumping off point to go deeper into the nature of triangles, which is such an essential formulation if our planet is ever to become a sacred planet, which it must. Matter of fact, it just goes pari passu, step by step with the Solar Logos. And if the Solar Logos is going to achieve its fifth initiation in this solar system, which is not a foregone conclusion, then our planetary Logos has to achieve his fifth cosmic initiation at the same time in order to be useful in that way. So there's a lot of wonderful information about the depth of triangles, and now we'll start to get into some of that now that we're working very hard on the meditation of triangles, like a number of groups in the world who are doing a good job with precisely that, the meditation. But I want to get into some of the deeper academic meanings of what it's all about. So if you want to join, there's the link, and you're most welcome to join us. Now, we are working on the technique of the presence, and I'm just reviewing a slight bit here. DK says it's essential that the world intuitives learn to use and control and understand the faculty of spiritual perception. It's related to the third degree of divine isolation. It starts at the third degree and goes to the fifth. And appropriate response, which characterizes the intuition. All these things the intuition has. This they can do through the practice of the technique of the presence, but not as it is usually taught and presented. And that's why DK is giving us such a very interesting kind of perspective and meditation about it. So there's some scientific lines of work. And this technique begins where the formulas leave off, and it presupposes a facility in approach to the angel or the soul. We have to differentiate there, but for practical purposes, they are the same. And an ability to raise the consciousness to a point of soul fusion. Now, through the use of the creative imagination, maybe we can do that. And maybe we practice that. And simply because we're working on the Antakarana does not mean that we neglect this stage of soul fusion and infusion. Otherwise, we could never launch the projective phase of the Antakarana work without the necessary infusion by what we call the soul on the higher mental plane. So it's really part of the process. So there are three stages here that we discussed last time in this preparatory work for building towards the use and understanding of the intuition. We have the stage of evocation of the stage of tension, and notice that we have to really control the personal self, to really use the will to hold it so it doesn't get involved in all kinds of points of extension and dissipate its force, but instead can focus at a point of tension. And then we will have the necessary strength on the mental plane to create that projection into the higher worlds, which will be answered evocatively by the higher powers who come forth to meet what we've sent up. There's no up or down, in or out, and all the rest, but given the state of our mind and how it visualizes and conceives things, we need those spatial references. Then we have to achieve a state of fusion with the soul or with the angel, which guards the approach to the path of higher evolution. This is called the angel of the presence. And I always think of it as much of that great being of the called the solar angel that can be invested within the causal body, egoic lotus, and blend with the consciousness, which is essentially that of the human being, which is the monadic consciousness in a state of attenuation, more and more veiled as it descends into matter. So in our soul nature, we have a blending of the consciousness which we have and the consciousness which the angel of the presence provides. And the fusing of consciousness is a type of yoga. And when DK says, okay, become an outpost of my consciousness, that's an example of the fusing of consciousness. It's like some sort of liquid like mercury. It all comes together, and the little clumps of mercury all form one thing. As a kid, I used to like to break thermometers so I could play with the mercury. And, well, I learned later it was poisonous, but okay, I like that planet, and it taught me a lot. Then, number 3, the holding of the mind steady in the light of the soul. And this has to be done through all the remaining period of work. Now, this is interesting, held at a point of tension by the soul, and not by, some strenuous effort of the personality. The soul undertakes this holding when the personal self has done its utmost to achieve the desired tension. So, we have to be identified as a soul. We have to somewhat be able to enter the higher mind. And this is a stage which is akin to contemplation. After you do everything you can, you, as a personality, you are silent, and that which you are as a soul takes over. And it is the soul that contemplates, and it's not the personality per se. So we have to learn how to make that bridge from what we consider ourselves to be as a personality to what we are as a soul. Very subtle thing. Use the creative imagination to do it. Practice it. That's what we have to do. And finally, all these 3 steps must precede the effort to develop the intuition. Well, we hardly know what the intuition is. It does give a sense of universality, a sense of love, a sense of wholeness. It is impersonal. And this is the beginning of the Agni Yoga discipline, the higher yoga. Now, DK tried to give some aspects of the yoga of synthesis when he was working from the second ray perspective, and Master Moria gave the Agni Yoga more from the perspective of the will, but it's, all of that is still in its infancy. So we're being prepared to practice the new yoga of the new age, the yoga of fire, the yoga of the intuition, the yoga of the spiritual triad and monad, the Agni Yoga. So we have 3 steps that we talked about a little bit last time, and it will lead to the intuition. Now, just to remind us, when we look at this composite diagram, this diagram put together by Keith Bailey, he got a lot of these things together and put them in one chart, so it's very helpful to us. Notice that the intuition is not simply available for those who begin to enter the Buddhic stage of consciousness. We have to achieve the vibration of the 4th subplane of the Buddhic plane before the intuition is really released. Somehow this great comprehensive view, it's a kind of a middlemost position in the entire chart. Notice that in this chart, we do not show the monadic plane and the logoic plane, and yet they are there. And so it is precisely at the midway point that the intuition exists, and thus, in a way, its relation to the great 4th ray of harmony through conflict on the 4th plane, the Buddhic plane. So achieving intuition is nothing easy, and I recommended, and we did study a little bit, in the beginning of Glamour, A World Problem, just the first few pages, he gives those marvelous definitions of the intuition, which I recommend that you study over and over again. The wisdom is there, the light is there, the love is there, the great impersonal oneness is there. That's the intuition, and not really what we call the psychic hunch, which gives us an idea of what might happen or not happen. So it's a much bigger thing than we think. All right, so then today, with that little bit of review, there are more stages to the technique. We've been given 3 stages. to the technique thus far. Next come 6 more stages in the technique of the presence. Now we're dealing with some very advanced stuff here. So, but it's necessary because glamours, well, they arise on their own, but it gets more complicated when the thinking person is subject to illusion, because then the force of illusion and glamour combine together, and you have a really difficult, distorting, fragmenting situation. So we have to learn what illusion is as well. This will keep us busy a long time. So next comes 6 more stages in the technique. And these must be thoroughly understood and form the basis of prolonged brooding and intelligent reflection. Now, notice, it's the second-rate type that really likes to brood. Brood over the thoughts until they hatch, brood over the eggs until they hatch. It is a silent, warming, reflective process, and it's not a forced process, but it does prepare us for the hatching of new thoughts and ideas, which otherwise, without that brooding intelligence, would not happen. So it's the brooding reflection carried on whilst the daily avocations and duties are being performed and not carried out at set times. Now, Alice Bailey had achieved this. She knew how to live the life in a fluid manner and to be meditating in a way all the time. And, they've told us that when you can really meditate all the time, your set meditations at a particular time, those as a discipline can be discontinued. And I'm not recommending that we discontinue anything regular along those lines, because I don't think we're really there yet. But we have to be able to live our life in such a way. Well, he says it. Let's see what he says. The trained intuitive, in the second C group, you become the trained intuitive or disciple, lives ever the dual life of mundane activity and of intense and simultaneous spiritual reflection. Well, that's a challenge, isn't it? Sometimes we get confused when we're just concentrating on simply what we have to do without worrying about its spiritual implications. So this will be the outstanding characteristic of the Western disciple, in contradistinction to the Eastern disciple who escapes from life into the silent places and away from the pressures of daily living and constant contact with others. And let's just say, like this, in our busy Western lives, this is not allowed for disciples such as we hope to become. So we are subject to great external and internal pressures simultaneously, but then take a look at what the hierarchy is subject to. They live the dual life in a manner even more intense than we do. So we're on our way trying to learn how to do this with what's it called? Skill in action. It's a great 7th rate, 4th rate thing, maybe all the rays are involved in it. Skill in action. So we can go through our daily life, be inwardly aware and outwardly effective simultaneously. Now, the Western disciple here in the Occident, the rays are interesting. I'll come to that. The task of the Western disciple is much harder. We can't escape. We can have our moments of retreat. It does help, Every once in a while you have to, Master K.H. in the Mahatma letters just said, well, meditation is for us our holiday. So, every once in a while to retreat into meditation is for them the way of restoring themselves. The task of the Western disciple is much harder, but that which he will prove to himself and to the world as a whole will be still higher. This is to be expected if the evolutionary process means anything. So I want to say something about the rays here. The Western races, they began in the East, and I'm sure many of us have begun in the East, and I'm sure Many of us have had Eastern incarnations, or incarnations, as they say, in the monasteries or convents of the West, at least a couple of those, before getting into a group like Master DK's group that he had supervised. The Western races must move forward into spiritual supremacy, which has nothing to do with domination, right? Without obliterating the Eastern contribution. So many of us are a blend of Neptune and Uranus. Neptune is the planet of the mystic, and that maybe was learned in the East, or maybe in some special circumstances in the West, and Uranus, the planet of the occultist. We are a blend of those two important synthesizing planets. We have to have both. And the functioning of the law of rebirth holds the clue to this and demonstrates this necessity. The births taken in the East, the incarnations taken in the West, and that general law which shows a consistent advancement in evolution. The tide of life moves from east to west as moves the sun. And, I'm sure you've seen that, the sunrise in the east and the setting in the west. And even when you're down in the southern hemisphere, it's still east to west. It's just in a reverse direction, always from east to west. And that is reflected in the lodges of Masonry and in other of the groupings who do the ritualistic work. And those who in past centuries struck the note of Eastern mysticism, we include ourselves, must struck the note of Eastern mysticism, must strike and are now striking the note of Western occultism. We are learning Western occultism, and I always call it spiritual occultism because, there are these perversions that go along with the word occult, so people have to understand this is a spiritual discipline. Therefore, the following stages must follow upon the three earlier. This was the preamble, and we will continue with the numbering as given, for what I here suggest is a formula for a more advanced meditation attitude. All right, this is not so much a form as a formula, and it gives us the right attitude. Now, all of us want to advance in meditation. We know that that's how the universe was created, in meditation. That planets and suns and constellations and even galaxies and on were all created from the meditation of a great logos. Entirely beyond our ken, but we're on our way and learning how to be a co-creator with the divine whole in which we live and move and have our being. And for practical purposes at this point, it is the planetary logos. So now I want to get into a continuation of the first three, and we can't get through all 9 or whatever they are, not today. It's not possible. But remember, as things come up for you, thoughts of interest in what is being said or that you've been brooding upon during the past week, then during our statement period and question period, then we can get into those. Excuse me. Okay. So, number 4. As part of this preparation for the cultivation of the intuition, a definite and sustained effort to sense the presence throughout the universe, in all forms and in all presentations of truth. Now, okay, this is called, maybe if you were a good Jesuit or something like that, it'd be called the practice of the presence, or the practice of the presence of God. We each have our way of doing this, but there is, in the words of the poet Wordsworth, something far more deeply interfused. And I mentioned maybe last week that I call this recognition of this presence, I call the method by which it is done infuception. Infuception. It is the recognition of that which infuses all forms of life. And one must practice this, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. You can be anywhere doing anything, because everything you perceive, all forms, gross and subtle. It's all part of the presence, and the presence is present in any possible perception you can have. So this could be expressed in the words, beautiful words really, probably old commentary, the effort to isolate the germ or seed of divinity which has brought all forms into being. And you can see, that's wonderful, I want to read it again. The effort, if I put it in yellow, the effort to isolate the germ or seed of divinity which has brought all forms into being. It is, I'll just put it down, it is being itself. That's what we're trying to isolate. And you can understand, he uses this word isolate in an interesting way. It's kind of like discernment, kind of like detecting, and it's a preparation for that which we will achieve at the fifth initiation, and it's called isolated unity. And we begin working on it even now. So much to ponder here, and brood upon. I just have to kind of move along here, but you can go back and you can study these things in the book. I would point out that this is not the attainment of a loving attitude and a sentimental approach to all people and circumstances. Okay, that's good. That is the mystical way, and though not intended to be negated in the disciple's life, and by this we mean the modern disciple, who is considered to be necessarily more advanced than what he was in the old days in the East, is not used at this time in the process of effective approach. So a more occult, we can say a more occult or Uranian method is used. Uranus is the great planet of simultaneity. And, it becomes possible eventually to perceive all things, to sense all things simultaneously, devoid of time and space, in the here and now, in such a way that it's all one thing. This is the Uranian type of perception. So being nice, being kind, all that, he says, it's the basis of everything. You have to have it. It was developed under Neptune, but now something else is required. It is the effort, this is marvelous, it is the effort primarily to see in the light which the angel radiates the point of light behind all phenomenal appearances. So we have the presence of the angel of the presence in our egoic vehicle, and we're tuning in on that egoic vehicle, and the angel is radiating a unique type of light which is revelatory, and we try to, in what the angel, we come in touch with the angel, in what that angel radiates, we try to sense a light that is even brighter, or is it darker? It depends on what symbology you're using. But to attune with the angel and its radiating light, we'll do that when we do these meditations on the technique of the presence, and see if we can sense that, well, the pure light of being, or at least to detect what being really is. I call it isness. It means something to me when I say isness, and it's something that is far beyond any consideration of quality. The very worst of things and the very best of things, they all have that one thing called isness, or being. Okay, this is therefore the transference of the mystical vision to the higher levels of awareness. Leading to, I want to say, what happens for occultists, leading to, if I could spell, IDN, identification. It is not the vision of the soul, but the vision or the spiritual sensing of that which the light of the soul can aid in revealing. You know the old statement, don't you? You've heard it many times. I'll write it out. In that light shall we see light, with a capital, you see. So in the lesser light, there will be revealed a greater light. The flickering soul light in the personal self has enabled the disciple to see the vision of the soul, and in that light to reach union with the soul. Now, I'm not saying that any of us is really there yet. That's a transfigured state, and we have to have pretty much 75% soul infusion in order for that to occur. So reach union with the soul, the Tibetan qualifies, even if only temporarily. Now, the greater light of the soul becomes focused like a radiant sun, and it reveals, in its turn, a still more stupendous vision, that of the presence of which the angel is the guarantee and promise. So the bright light of the angel indicates the coming registration of a still brighter light. I mean, is there such a thing as infinite light? Well, I don't know. It would be a post-prolaic perception, infinite light, but let's just say the light of the universal logos has to be so stupendous that if we cannot conceive what Shambhala is on this tiny little speck of dust we call the earth, then we have absolutely no conception of the intensity of light of the universal logos, even though it is finite and not infinite. As the light of the moon is the guarantee that the light of the sun exists, so the light of the sun is the guarantee, did you but know it, of a still greater light. And what I did was pull out a kind of quotation from the old commentary and talking about Master Moria and what he does. And this is found here in the Rays and Initiations, page 170, and I'll read it to us, and we'll get an idea of the different kinds of light and how they operate. So ashrams on atmic levels, there are not so many, are under the control of Master M, who fosters the will aspect within the developed forms, no matter who you are, okay? And who, as the old commentary expresses it, quote, adds darkness unto light so that the stars appear. For in the light the stars shine not, but in the darkness light diffused, as of the light of the sun, light diffused is not, but only focused points of radiance. The symbolism will be obvious to you, though not the full significance. So here we have the moving from the moon to the sun, and especially from the sun to the stars, and into these points of intuition, which even the causal body, under the symbol of the sun, can blot out or block. Anyway, it requires deep contemplation, but this is a great atmic realization, and this is one of the things that Master M does, fostering the will aspect, and he also adds darkness unto light, etc. Okay, very, very interesting, I think. Now, look, what I realize, of course, yeah, there's just so much to do. Maybe we have time to do number 5, and then have our statement and question period, and then do our meditation, interestingly, on egoism and egotism, which is so prominent in the world today, and which is an abuse of the solar energy. It is a Leonian abuse, it's a solar abuse, and it has to do with not being able to see the bigger picture, but only the extent of one's supposed identity, and thus all things refer to one's apparent self, even though that apparent self is really an example of mistaken identity. The whole world suffers from it, and from the great heresy of separateness, and some pretty larger-than-life figures suffer from it more than others. Okay, then point number 5, then having sensed the presence, you have to ask yourself, can we do that? Can we sense the soul? Can we sense the presence? Okay, not theoretically, but in vibrating response to its existence. It's really there. It's a real whatever, and you are somehow coming in touch with it and becoming it and being it. You're being the being, not theoretically, but in vibratory response to its existence. There next comes the stage of ascertaining of the purpose. Now, intuition reveals purpose. It doesn't reveal the purpose of, little people and their little projects, but of the planetary whole. Hope of identification with the purpose lies too far ahead for even the average initiate, above the third degree, under the status of master. So, and I was reading just the other day, the fifth initiation is called the initiation of revelation. What is revealed? Well, one thing that's revealed is the significance of the 7 or 9 paths on the way of higher evolution, so that the initiate can begin to make that decision about which one he will tread. But the other, and maybe more important thing that is revealed, is the divine purpose of our planetary logos. That is what is revealed to the one who has reached the initiation of revelation. Okay, so with that unattainable stage for us, the identification with the purpose, we are not concerned. He tells us about it, but, we can't spend too much time on it. But we are concerned with the effort to achieve an understanding of that which, through the medium of form, is seeking to embody the high purpose at any point in the evolutionary cycle. And this can be, what is the source of purpose? The soul or soul hierarchy, monad, groupings of monads. With purpose of that nature, we can do something or learn something. This is possible and has been achieved down the ages by those who have rightly approached and duly reflected upon the way of the higher evolution. Well, okay, that's an amazing thing. He's written on the way of the higher evolution. He's done it in Initiation Human and Solar. Then he expanded the vision of the way of the higher evolution in a treatise on cosmic fire, and then he thought that would be the end, but it wasn't. He got permission to say even more in the rays and initiations, and I have made some video commentary on the way of higher evolution. You can find it on Makara. What do I know? But I mean, at least one can speculate about the methods of preparation and who treads it and what's achieved and so forth. This way is revealed to the disciple, even though it may not concern the intuitive message which he may bring back from his high adventure. Well, the intuitive message is still pretty close to home when you're starting to think about the way of higher evolution, which lies before, we might call it the graduating master. So DK has given it to us as a great incentive, but not because it really can tell us our particular next step. So anyway, this is all about sensing the presence and then ascertaining the purpose of that which guides us, which is the soul, the solar angel, and the presence, which is our own monad, and of course hierarchy and the ashrams with which we may be affiliated. Okay, friends, so this is going to be the end of Dissipation of Glamour Initiative, I think it's number 34, and today is the 17th of February, 2017, and I don't know what page we're on. Okay, whatever, up to page 180, 181, something up to 181. And where we began, I think we were still, well, we began really talking at 178. We began that in our little review. Okay, so 178 to 181. Now, I realize that's a lot of material in a concentrated form. So the question is, what strikes you? What would you like to say? What would you like to ask? You can do that in a manner where you speak up if you wish. Raise your hand. If I miss you, Brett will help me find you. Or you can ask a question or make a statement in the chat box. So let's spend a little time. Now, obviously, we have 6, 7, 8, and 9 to go. You know, we have at least another session or maybe 2 sessions on these stages whereby we prepare to become intuitives. Okay, that's what we are doing now. So your thoughts, friends, you know, and don't worry. I mean, you know, nobody knows the depths of Master DK's thoughts. We just don't know, but we're trying to find out, and we just offer our thoughts and our questions. So, anybody? Okay. Because we are, you know, dealing here with, well, it's a high thing. Intuition is a high thing. We all must become adept at what we call buddhi manas. It may not happen in this life, but it's the higher mind, the concrete mind, and the intuition all together. We all have to learn how to unite the minds and then make them subject to the intuition. It'll take a while. Okay, do we have anybody that would like to ask a question? Anything you may have been thinking about in this whole glamour work? See, why are we, you know, he puts the intuition in the glamour book. Why does he do that? You know, it's because our illusions can only be dispelled by intuition, just like the clear light of the mind dissipates the glamour. And when we add illusion to glamour, we really have a mess. And that is what can be done today, unfortunately, because the modern man is a thinking being, although not necessarily a being who interprets correctly. So illusion is added to the glamour, and then we really are veiled. Reality is veiled from us. So we have to clear everything, and there are certain ancient occult techniques which involve the method of clearing, and he's giving them to us. Okay, any questions? I hope I'm still on the air. Maybe I've been, yeah, apparently my microphone is working. Okay.
You're fine.
Okay, thank you, Brett. So, if you have any thoughts, now, another thing I want to say this. Okay, we do have, can rely on the Aries person. Thank you, Sheldon. Go ahead.
Well, Michael, thank you for this very enlightening way of moving through this. I just wanted to make a comment, perhaps. It may not be exactly what you meant by infuception, but I'm relating to the notion of isolating the germ of divinity. And for me, the connection with vibration. It seems to me that what happens, well, again, I can speak personally, but what happens as we move forward into this light, things begin to open up for us. We begin to feel a vibratory flow that we feel. I mean, it's not just like an idea. It flows through us. It's not just a trembling, but although it can be, I guess, depending upon the degree of the physical body. But there's a vibration that we begin to feel familiar. And for me, I call it the presence of the soul, the solar angel. I think we have more experiences of this touch of I love the idea, germ of divinity. Like it happens to us various ways, and it goes so quickly because we're not there to sustain it and maintain it and realize what's going on. But if we notice what's going on, it's like you could be looking at, I'm out here on a rainy day looking at the trees here and the rain falling. It kind of hits, and all of a sudden inside there's a little bit of a burst of vibration. It's like something more intense goes on. taking notice, and I don't go into a lot of meaning and because I'm listening to what's going on here. But I think we have moments like this, which if we notice, we begin to get the sense of the presence of divinity in everything. So there's, a talk on the television by someone who is talking the other way. I mean, it's very interesting to note. So this is just a comment about vibration, noticing those moments, allowing those to register so that they attract more of our attention as time goes forward. Just a thought.
Yeah, and it's a good one. And, it's a very subtle thing because in a way it's so obvious. It's always there that we tend to overlook the being of things, the isness of things, the presence of things, because we're more interested in, what's going on, in the realm of activity and quality. But eventually, as DK said an interesting thing in his extract from the statement by the Tibetan. He said, I am an initiate into the mysteries of being, something like that. And that should tell you something, so it's not just consciousness, it's being. And when we start approaching the spiritual triad, we're entering that particular world, going beyond quality. Now, of course, quality never ends because the planetary logos has its levels of activity, of quality, of being, and all that. So we will be faced with ever larger examples of activity and quality with which we have to deal. But if we have this continuum of the raw fact of being, the thing that's there and which produced it all and which we are, then we have an anchor in reality. And if we can, hold on to that with some degree of continuity every day, and we don't necessarily do that, but if we could, then the whole perception of everything and of nothing would be transformed, and we would be into an initiated state of consciousness. So, that lies before us. That lies before us, absolutely. Well, thank you for your thoughts there, Sheldon. Appreciate that. Yeah, looking at the words, and when DK says ponder on this, he really means it, and it's just a question of how we use our time and whether we will take time to do something so apparently impractical in the world of activity and quality, whether we will simply contemplate being for a few minutes, there's no time in being and all the rest, but still in the practical way, there are minutes. If we just take a little time and we find our way, that too is a method of building the Antakarana. It's part of it. Okay, thank you, Sheldon. I can always count on you to, to be the who will dive into the pool. That's the question. And the Aries type tends to go. Okay, anything else, friends? Don't be daunted by this material. Look, we're all daunted by this material. This is fantastic material, and you just begin to, the further I go, the less I know. Okay, that's how I feel. And when I think about Master DK and what he knows, it becomes a revelation with every step. Oh, he knows that too, and that, and that, and that, and how masterfully it's all presented. But look, we're on our way. So just be brave if you have something that you want to comment on or something you want to ask. There are no stupid questions. Okay. Okay, I'm doing my best here. I don't see at the moment any hands, but you can read this a little bit. You can go into this section of the book and just kind of ponder it, and it'll prepare you for our next session. Look, the first thing is, can we enter the world of the soul? Really? Or are we just sort of stuck on the higher levels of the aspiring personality? Can we actually get into those streams of energy which create the egoic lotus? That's our objective. And when we can do that and focus in those energies, we have become transfigured. We have achieved the third initiation when we can do that at will and with continuity. So that's our first objective. Meanwhile, we're building the Antakarana in the way that he has suggested. I want to say also, put in a little plug for the coming conference at its new venue. We have what we call the Advancing Seven Ray Seminar, and some time ago, I think, Livy, you suggested we should have a 7-ray continuing seminar, and we have, and we've been going with it, and now we have studied soul fusion and infusion, and our next task in terms of the rays is to study the Antakarana in terms of ray approach, which we're going to do meditatively and so forth over the 2 or 3 days that we get together at the conference. So in the esoteric astrology pre-conference workshop, we do the will, we work on the will, and in the ceremonial class, we're working on the will in ceremonial work. It's a conference all about the will, but there are different ray approaches to the will. So it's going to go very deep, and I hope that some of you will be able to show up in full bodily presence and absorb as much as may be possible for you and take it out into the year. And we'll also, I want to say this, I'm digressing a little bit here, but this year, I think we did it once before, but this year we're having the Wesak Festival at the conference. Now, for some, I know this is an inconvenience. For some, it will be an opportunity. It was just one of those things. The scheduling worked out that way, and it landed us smack on the Wesak. And we're very happy to get together when we're discussing the will. Taurus is a huge shambolic sign, and that great first ray is going to occur whenever there is a hierarchical approach to Shambhala, as there is at Wesak. So it's another opportunity for us at conference in, what's the name of the Chandler, Arizona, pretty close to where we used to do it before. So I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you in person as can possibly show up. So that was my plug, hawking the conference a little bit. And are there any questions or thoughts before we get into our meditation on egoism and egotism and their dissipation? It's all a question of perception, this question of the clarification of consciousness. We perceive something, and it's not very complete, and we think it's the whole world. We think it's everything, and we're just deluded, and we're glamored. Our perceptions have to change. Okay. All right, well, okay. Next time we'll be a little less daunted. Daunted means you look at something and you say, oh my God, it's so big, how can I possibly make a dent in this? But we're on our way, all of us. We have our methods of meditation. We have an expert teacher in Master DK, and we will achieve what is necessary, and we will offer to humanity what can help subjectively in our very troubled political, economic, and religious times. Excuse me. Okay, so on we go. This is the formula we have been using, part of the technique of light. So we will, all of us here, there's, 39, 40 of us, something like that. And we will just have some silence. We can't name everybody's name right now, but we're all here with the intent to cooperate subjectively and we reach out to each other as if on the plane of soul, in the silence. And in the silence is the synthesis. And so we are gathering our energies together in a synthesized manner. Because these energies, when gathered and rightly directed, will have a subjective salutary effect on the subtle planes, and this we must believe. We must have faith in this, and we must eventually know it is so. And so now, using the sign of the long-armed cross, we will utilize the protective formula, because let's not fool ourselves, glamour can overcome the unwary. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point I never move. And as we do this with the protective formula, we can use the creative imagination to see the stages of the formula. Now we enter our preparatory stages using the creative imagination throughout. So we focus the dual light of mind and matter. We can consider the light of matter for these purposes to be etheric physical, and the light of mind on the lower mental plane. So we imagine we see these lights. We lift the light of matter to the mental plane and focus the light of mind with the light of matter on the mental plane. So we can understand mentally and have the necessary vitality to do what we propose to do. Then we turn our attention meditatively on soul contact, and however we want to visualize this, we recognize soul light. It definitely exists. It's a part of each one of us. We fuse and blend this light together. And finally, we bring it down to the plane of the lower mind, where matter and mind are fused, and we join that lesser fusion, creating a greater fusion as the light of the soul is added. The fusion of the two lesser lights with soul light. We visualize this. And we assert that a triple light as one now exists, where we operate from the fourth subplane of the mental plane. Each one of us has generated a combination of the light of matter, the light of mind, and the light of the soul. And in the group sense, the light is very bright because we fuse the light of the group matter, the light of group mind, and the light of group soul. So in our midst is this triple unified light. Now we say together in affirmation of what we have done, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. So within ourselves and within the group as a whole, we have created a triple unified light, which one day will be possible of revealing the light of intuition, the light of day as it's called, of the Buddhic plane. But it's enough for now that the light of day, some reflection of it, penetrate the astral plane and dissipate the concealing clouds which hide and distort reality. Now we enter the formula, and as we do so, we're going to visualize a great searchlight that is the extension of the triple unified light we have created. That light goes forth. our searchlight. Our group searchlight goes forth onto the astral plane. It is a real thing generated by the group, and it can be effective in dissipating the concealing clouds. It's an instrument. In the right hands, it's even a weapon. And one thinks of the horn of the unicorn in the initiate Capricorn. There's similarities. So, as a group, and visualizing the great searchlight doing its task out there, we say, radiance and power are we. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. So that's our task, and our beam of triple light is out there. The astral plane is not really subjective at all. It's subtle but not subjective. And we add to it, to our beam, which should feel very real to each of us individually and in the group sense. We're going to add the spiritual will to it, empower it with spiritual will, the source of which is the monad, but especially focused on the atmic plane and focused variously in the egoic lotus and especially in the sacrifice petals. So we're going to empower our beam. Empower our beam. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. Now our goal in this world of swirling desires and emotions and misperceptions is to dissipate the glamour of thinking you're more important than you are. It's part of the decentralization process. From the illusion of egoism comes the glamour of egotism. From the great mistake of mistaken identity, so discussed in the Upanishads and in the Vedantic work, comes this attitude of self-importance, of being the center of everything, having the world revolve around you, and having therefore a very myopic perspective, and not at all understanding the wholeness of things, the interrelationships of things. The lower ego is taking up too much space. And we're trapped in that perception. So many leaders in the world are victims of this mistake. They truly love their lower ego. And as far as they're concerned, it's who they are. And they'll never be able to play correctly in the group sense unless the sun finds its detriment in Aquarius and falls in Libra. The son of egotism must realize the group and must realize the importance of the other and the golden rule. These are the detriment and fall of the lower sun. And so, with our beam strengthened by will, confronting the dark clouds which veil the truth, the reality of things, deluding us, confusing us, misleading us, we mount our attack from the world of light. And we visualize this process going on with the glamour being penetrated, the clouds being penetrated by the beam, and producing the weakening of the glamour and its falling apart and its dissipation and its disappearance. That'll happen, of course, on a large scale by the end of the Aquarian age, in the period of brotherly love, the last 700 years or so, but we have to get going now. So, we visualize, as we say together, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of egotism. And instead of those clouds which blind the deluded individual to the meaning of the wider picture, there develops a sense of proportion. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of egotism. And all take their proper and proportionate place. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour of egotism from affecting humanity. Negates that quality. A unique type of blindness and the love of that which blindness reveals. That quality is prevented, negated. and no emanation holds the center, only the one life holds the center. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour. And there will be a shrinking of the lower ego because there is no vitality to support its wrongly inflated form. So we're going to work with these 3 words of power, and we will do that in the 5 minutes of silence, working with intensity of purpose, seeing the work proceed, the dissipating work proceed, however you want to visualize that, and guided by the 3 words of power, as here seen on the screen. So however you wish to see this penetration, this dissipation, this clearing, this coming of a reflection of the light of day, it's up to you. But the sense of proportion will destroy any inflations which prevent true vision of who we are and what we have to do, who others are and what they have to do. It will all be seen in the light of right proportion. And what is humility after all? The antidote to egotism, it is an adjusted sense of right proportion. It's a balanced mind. And it's a way of, under Saturn, of controlling the impulses which make for chaos, ugliness, exaggeration, minimization, an untrue picture of the world. So, friends, then we withdraw our beam. Through the creative imagination, we withdraw our will-inspired beam, bringing it back to the mental plane, the soul, the mind, the vitality. And for the moment, we turn off this searchlight, which not only reveals, but dissipates and destroys the veils. And together we will sound the Om 3 times. Imagining the work done mentally, etheric physically, but especially in this context on the plane of emotion and desire, which is the plane of what the Tibetan calls at this time the Great Illusion. The mind first and then descending. So over a period of time, and if we learn to work individually and as a group with the various forms of light, we will help to improve the outer situation by improving the inner. And we will have occultly played our part to bring the divine plan closer to earth and to end the chaotic and blind conditions which are presently controlling so many human beings. So we persist, and we will meet next week. And I just want to again remind you in the chat box, we're going to go into a deeper study of triangles. It will be open to you Tuija and I will be presenting our thoughts, but we'll be basing it all on the text of Master DK. It's the one area in the book where he seems to concentrate only on the science of triangles, but scattered throughout the books are many, many references, many of which Starling Hunter has gathered. He has done a lot of good work over the years in triangles. So we have plenty of material to study together to deepen our understanding of why this triangles work is so close to Master DK's heart, and how important it is not only for our personal and group transformation, but for the transformation of the entire planet. So, thank you, and see you tomorrow morning. I mean, at least here in Europe it is, 5 a.m. GMT. And then tomorrow night, 5 p.m. GMT, we'll continue with the invocation of the soul of nations. That's the Saturday work, and then the Sunday work, attracting money for hierarchical purposes. We'll do our part inwardly to help things take shape outwardly. Okay, thank you for attending, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.